Hello everyone, I'm Sam Clift, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how I drew this fox in pastel pencils. This is actually my first time using pastel pencils, and so I've got a brand new tin of the Faber-Castell Pitt Pastel pencils. Look how beautiful they are. There's something so exciting about opening a new tin of pencils, and so there's the two layers beautifully laid out, and I just can't wait to get going on them. I'm using Pastelmat for this, and I'm choosing the dark grey, and I'm going to start by mapping out the darkest parts around the eye using the dark sepia colour, which I always do with every drawing I do, usually starting with the outline of the eye. And then with this one I can go straight in with the black. I'm just going to be filling in the middle of the eye with one layer of the cinnamon orange colour, and then just going in with a burnt sienna to add a little bit of shadow and a little bit of depth of colour to the edges of the eye and around the pupil, and of course under the eyelid where is usually the darkest part, and then just mapping in the darkest part of the pupil. And this is when the drawing really starts to come to life. So using the dark sepia to begin with, and then going in with the black to darken up the eye some more. I'm then going in with a light grey, and the great thing about Pastelmat and pastel pencils is that you can go in with lighter over dark, which is a massive bonus. And then I'm just going to start filling in the orange parts, just using a light hand and a scribbly pencil stroke just to get those base layers in of the kind of terracotta colour, the base of the fox's fur. And then I'm going to lay down a little bit of the cream just to add in where the highlights are going to be, and just filling in some of the tooth of the paper. So at this stage, just mapping everything out. And then I'm just going to be using a fur technique to map in the direction of the fur. This is quite a light section around the eye, so very small pencil strokes and using a light hand. Adding a bit more depth now with the darker browns, so going in where the shadows are, which are generally all around the eye, and then adding the layers to build up the colours of the fur. So I'm doing that over the whole piece, and then adding some lighter brown, some ochre colour, to add a little bit more depth to that pigment. The great thing about pastel pencils is you can go light over dark, and so I'm going in with the highlights over the top to blend it in, and then adding a little bit more burnt sienna just to add some depth to the shadows around the eye. Going in with the dark sepia to darken this up some more, and then going in with the darker browns, the umbers, and adding some darker sections of fur as well as some much lighter to the highlighted areas. And now going over that whole area with the ochre colour to blend, and a little bit more of the umber to darken where the shadows need to be, adding some darker texture to the whole of this section, and then knowing to go a little bit darker in the shadows once you've got those other colours in. Adding a little bit more of the lighter colours of the fur using that same fur technique, and going in with the umbers and the ochres. I'm actually using only about 3 or 4 different colours on this, and just using them to build it up gradually, adding a little bit of shadow where it needs to go, and using the light grey just to start adding the longer fur around the kind of ruff of the fox's neck, where the fur is a lot longer. So making your pencil strokes longer to create the longer fur. Adding a base layer to the nose where this area is actually in highlight, and then again using that same technique with the umber and the ochre to build up the gradual colours in the fox's fur. Darkening up some more with the umber, and then adding all of those lovely ochres and terracottas into the fox's fur. I've just added some long fur strokes to the white part of the fur, and now I'm just going in with a darker grey to pick out where the shadows are, making sure that it doesn't look flat and you're giving the hair some form. Going in with a cream or lighter colour just to add a little bit of highlight and light looking into the fur, so it's not just white. There are many different colours that make up the whitest part of the fox's fur. Eventually going in with the white just to pick out some highlights, but just using this sparingly. Now I'm going to go in with the detail, like the fox's nose. I'm just doing this in complete black, which is fantastic. It's just a shadow and then a little highlight just in the middle there. Going over a few times with a few layers just to intensify that colour, and then adding those darker colours to where the shadows are under the fox's chin. I'm then going to apply the same technique over the whole of the fox's fur, the whites, adding the shadows and the detail, adding the long pencil strokes to the ruff of the fox's fur with the greys and the whites, and then going in with the lovely terracotta, using a scribbling technique just to fill in the grain of the paper and actually build up through the layers, adding depth and texture to the fur. Going in with the ochre to add a little bit of that lovely yellowy tone, and then using the darker colours to add the detail on the fox's fur. The fox's fur is very short on the nose, so using very, very small pencil strokes. Using the lighter colour just to bring in some highlights, and then warming it up with these lovely ochre colours. Darkening up where needs to be darker, which tends to be the side of the fox's nose where it's in a little bit of shadow, and then adding the dark greys to add a little bit of detail where more intense shadow needs to go. I'm then going to move on to the second eye, again outlining as I did with the first, using the dark sepia colour, and then going in with the black and layering up with the oranges and reds, and then adding the pupil as the darkest part of the eye. I'm then going to use this whole technique over the top of the fur, so just looking out for the direction of the fur and the length of the fur, making sure that you're following certain patterns and adjusting your pencil strokes accordingly. So I've used those mixtures of 3 or 4 colours just to add that depth, and now going into the fox's ear, again using the same technique, going in with the lighter colours to lighten things up around the centre of the ear, using long pencil strokes to really highlight the length of those lovely wispy furs inside the ear, darkening up the outline, and then going in with the white just for the highlights, and then darkening up the centre with the dark sepia and the black. Making sure that you're blending in the ear with the other colours so they don't look stuck on, they all look part of the same thing. And then just adding a little bit of detail, using that lovely kind of yellowy colour just to add some warmth where the sunlight is hitting. Darkening up some more, just adjusting those values, making sure you're getting the shadows in the right place and the highlights in the right place. Softening those pencil strokes, just getting rid of any graininess and adding the white just to the highlights. And now I can go over that whole area once the second ear is in, adding the shadows where they need to go, just darkening everything up, using exactly the same colours, exactly the same technique, just building up through the layers, adding a few final touches to the darkest parts of the ear, and the shadows making the highlights look like they're stepping forward to create form. Using those same colours in the body for the longer fur, building up through the umbers, the ochres and the burnt sienna, a little bit of cream, and then blending those two sections together. Adding a few final adjustments to create some shadow to make the fox's face step forward and the body just stand back a little bit. Using the lighter colours just to blend everything nice and smooth, adding a little bit more detail to the shadows and around the fox's nose where the whiskers come out, and then finally the whiskers, just to finish Mr. Fox off. And there he is, the finished fox. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you'd like to draw this fox for yourself, then I've got a step-by-step tutorial available in my online membership, along with lots of other tutorials for you to get stuck into in a wide variety of mediums and subject matters. For more information on this, I will leave a link in the description box, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.